What's going on, everyone? Today, my guest is Adam Balsinger. He's 12 years into the game, multi-million dollar portfolio, and we had one of the most honest conversations about what real estate actually looks like today versus what social media tells you. We kind of got a little off script, so it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Kind of one of those like coffee talks that you always want to have with a real estate investor. And we really dive into the specifics and, what does real estate actually look like today and what is working and what are these first time investors, messing up? This is the Leadway Podcast, episode 217. And if you're hungry to build wealth, escape the W 2, and create a life on your own terms, but nobody around you is talking about how to actually do it, you're in the right place. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and every week I sit down with investors and entrepreneurs who have already done it, breaking down the vehicles, the mindset, and the exact moves that built their wealth. And today is going to be a good one. So let's hop into the episode. All right, Adam Balsinger, welcome to the Leadway Podcast. How's it going, man?
Not too bad, Chris. Thanks so much, man, for having me on. I'm excited to be able to share.
Absolutely. And I think you have so much background experience. I love what you're doing up in Philly with the co-living because that's a really hot topic right now. And then we're gonna, touch on the multifamily bloodbath that's happening right now. So super excited to get into just breaking down what is happening there and why that's happening. But before we get into it, for somebody who hasn't heard your name before, who is Adam and what do you do?
Oh man, who isn't Adam? So I'll try to make it brief here. So I'm a real estate investor. I am a husband and I am a father. I should actually probably change that order around because I would put real estate investor at the end of that list. Um, in terms of like real level of importance, right? Um, but yeah, dude, so what is it? It's 2026 today. I've been a real estate investor since 2014. And I've been a full time for all but one of those years. So of my like 12 years as a real estate investor, 11 of those 12 have been full time. And dude, I mean like if you name it, like I've pretty much done it in that time frame. I started out doing single family fix and flips. I did those for a couple years. That like, and dude, like things happen, right? So for your audience, like one thing that I would encourage is not trying to figure things out like 1,000% of the way, like today, right? Like you never really know until you kind of like get in,
Mhm.
right? So like my journey has been kind of filled with pivots that have happened periodically. Um, I think in hindsight, like some of those pivots served me well, and in other instances, like I was maybe a little too quick to pivot. Um, but so I've done the fix and flips. I've run a wholesaling organization with like three virtual assistants and like three acquisitions agents and like two dispositions agents, like shelling out like 5 figures in marketing, everything like so. Like I've done the fix and flip, I've done the wholesale. Um, I built a small portfolio, which I then exited. I transitioned into like commercial apartment complexes and multifamily and syndication. I did that syndication game from like 17 through like 2022. Um, you mentioned bloodbath, like that space is very challenging right
Mhm.
now. For those of like for your audience members, like real estate in general has been kind of weird over the past few years because interest rates have been in this like weird limbo, right? Like it's like one day they're going down and then the next day they're going up and it's like nobody knows, right? Um, but yeah, commercial is very challenging at the moment. Where I am today is really like 100% focused on just buy and holds. And so that is really, man, a combination of like I've got some short-term rental exposure in my portfolio. I hate that business model, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, I'm happy to get into why if you want. I've got the short-term rental exposure. I've got just traditional like long-term rental with a focus on affordability, Section 8 and other subsidied programs. Despite living in the greater Charlotte area, almost all of what I do is in Philadelphia, which is where I'm originally from. So the short-term rental exposure is in the Western North Carolina mountains. Okay.
Okay.
But then like the affordable housing, the Section 8, the long-term rentals, and then also more recently, I'm pushing a lot of chips onto the co-living bet,
Hmm.
which is just kind of a different approach, really geared around affordability. Um, so that's all in Philadelphia as well. But so today I'm really pretty much all buy and hold. We do some flips every once in a while, periodically, just to make sure we've got some cash coming in. Um, you know, the people selling the programs forget to tell you about like you successfully execute the burr, and then like after 2 years of your person living there, when they move out, like, and you have to pay for a $10,000 unit turn because your tenant like destroyed your property. Um, so like it's important, right, for the audience, you need some money. If
Yeah.
you're getting into this world, like even if you're doing like no money down, no money out of pocket deals, if you don't have some money that you can throw at these like unit turns that happen 3 years after you've done the burr, then you're just sitting on an empty property that can't make you any money, right? So we've been over the past few years kind of personally injecting cash into our portfolio as unit turns and some of these big surprises pop up.
Hmm.
And so my partner and I earlier this year are sitting there scratching our heads like, why are we funding this like out of pocket? Like we could just flip a few houses a year and then use the profits from the flips to then account for any of those over, right? But you live and learn. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a quick snapshot. I think I went down a little, I
No.
started to go down a few little paths and was like, wait, no, stop, hold on.
No, no, I love that because you've just done pretty much everything in real estate. So you're able to see like the different aspects, hey, what I like, what I don't like. You're able to see the seasons of the real estate going through the cycles.
Yeah.
And you know, and at the end of the day, you kind of went back to single family rentals and then how do we secure that? So what would you say out of all those is, kind of your favorite where you would if somebody's getting in today, it's like, hey, focus on that. Or does it
Your
matter?
audience is
Just,
your audience
just
and you might hate this answer, Chris.
that's all right.
Okay. I heard something a few years ago that I have not been able to get out of my head.
Hmm.
Did you know that during the gold rush, the vast majority of people that made it because of the gold rush, they weren't the miners. Most people think it was the miners, right? The people that moved across country and risked everything to go and like to find this gold, right? Most of those people ain't shit. The majority of people that made it during the gold rush were the people selling the pickaxes and the shovels to the miners.
I see exactly what you're saying. It's the education, or
It could be. The
okay.
education is one component. So, like, if we take that concept today, Chris, and we apply it to real estate investing, right? Because supply and demand is the fundamental basis of all economics, right?
Hmm.
And so, what is different today versus real estate investing when I started 12 years ago is social media, right? So when I got started, and this is 12 years ago, right? Like if you think about like the real OGs that have been in real estate for like 30 years pre 2000s, like dude, my dad, if when my dad was my age, if he wanted to get into real estate investing, do you know what he would have had to do? He would have had to like magically come up with the idea to invest in real estate on his own.
Hmm.
And then he would have needed to like go buy books and spend time, free time, reading those books. Or maybe he would have heard the radio advertisement on the radio, right? Driving to work. He would have had to pull over find a pen and paper, write the number down, and call the number when he got to work or got home, order the cassette tapes and listen to the cassette tapes in the car.
Wow.
Okay. Dude, today you see a freaking YouTube video and like you can get the information for free, right? So the information was harder to obtain in the past. It's one of the awesome things about social media is it's like democratize the access of information, right?
Hmm.
Good and bad. Because now real estate is way more competitive than it would have been 20 years ago. Because it's easier to get the information and like what credentials are required to become a real estate investor, right? Like none.
Hmm.
So it's fundamentally changed the game. Now, this is the gospel according to Adam. Okay.
Yeah.
I would also like to mention to your audience, like I am generally a contrarian and I also don't have anything to sell. So y'all, please, please take what you hear from people selling you shit online and like maybe take it with a grain of salt. Or
Oh,
maybe think of like how, okay, well, is that totally true or are they really just like trying to make some more money? Right. So what we've seen is now there's this whole new industry around coaching and information that didn't exist like 10 years ago. Right. So but if we take that concept, right, because now there's so much competition in real estate investing, and we think of like, okay, if building wealth is really the goal, like I have a several $1 million real estate portfolio today. Do you think that I don't have that necessarily, like, it doesn't equate to my net worth, right? Because I have debt. Like, I
hmm.
have debt on these properties. And so, after 10, 20 years, I could, if I wanted to, own those properties outright, right? But I have to get to that point, right? So I have this multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio today, but I'm also several $1 million in debt today, okay? And I can't like access those millions, right? Because there's this debt over top of them. Well, so if creating and building wealth is the goal in real estate investing, like in 20 years, I will have access to that like multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio as my tenants help me pay down that debt.
Right.
I had a property manager, Chris, who sold his business as I was a client of his. He exited for $4 million. He hadn't owned that business for 30 years. He had started it like 5 or 10 years prior. Now, am I saying that being a property manager is an easy or sexy business to run? No,
No.
no, I'm not saying that at all. But most of us that are chasing wealth understand that there is at least a somewhat of a degree of delayed gratification that's going to be factored in here, right? That's going to be part of this process. So, dude, if I was brand new and literally my real estate meeting that we had to postpone it because we lost our location with all this like legal shit going on in
Oh
the
yeah.
Carolinas and the Charlotte area with people. I'm not affected, but like other people were. Our location was affected. But dude, the literal subject, Chris, of my real estate investing meeting this month was you don't have to be the real estate investor to make it in real estate investing.
Hmm.
So I think there's some really great spaces that you could play in today for people that are just getting started. And I'm not talking about education because everybody else that's ever done a deal now thinks they're an educator, right? So like if we think about this, the like supply and demand dynamic that I mentioned before, dude, I would actually argue that it's more competitive today to be a coach or a mentor than it is to be the real estate investor, right? And so these things matter. The number of people you're competing with matters in a competitive market space, right? Like, duh.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of broke that down that way because that's how it's been over probably the past 2 years to where I think everybody kind of drank the Kool-Aid. A lot of people made a lot of money over the past couple years, and they're trying to teach those same things that they were doing, but it's like it's a different market. it's a different landscape. Everything is a lot different now. So a lot of people, they can get in and they can start, and the Burr method and coaching that is really popular now. But like you said, what happens with these rentals? I mean, your $50 of cash flow every month isn't going to be able to support that. So um, something that
And
I've been
then
kind
well,
of, yeah,
let
is,
me let me throw something on top of that,
yeah,
Chris.
yeah.
If their strategy behind their real estate investing was that great and made them that much money, why would they feel the need to begin selling courses?
Yeah, it's a great point.
Do you think it's possible, and this is not just for you, Chris, but your audience, but do you think it is conceivable that somebody could make more money selling coaching than actually doing the real estate that they're teaching?
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in one of those masterminds, and I mean, he's a great guy. He's doing it high level out in St. Louis. Learned a ton. But when you start listening to his like real estate portfolio, how it went, made a ton of money a couple years ago. Now they got consistent. I mean, they have a great life. But I started thinking about how many people were in his mastermind and then what the mastermind costs. I'm like, he's making way more money off of this mastermind than real estate every year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so interesting to see. But
But it really makes you
yeah.
wonder, like, okay, if that's the case, if let's just 50%, let's say,
Mhm.
of the educators, the mentors, the gurus, the whatever, if 50% of them make more as a coach or a mentor than they do as a real estate investor, then maybe this might burst some bubbles, but then is it really that lucrative to be a real estate investor?
And
Hmm.
that's where the big pivot has been lately, and that's where my focus has been. It's figuring out the businesses because one of the guys I follow, Brian Lubin, he talks about buying the
Yeah,
business and having
I
the
know,
active
Brian. Yeah.
income, and that's where my mind has been over the past. I mean, ever since I read his book, and that's where I started flipping houses.
Yeah.
I
And so
aided in
why?
that. Yeah,
Well, so think about it then, right? If we go back to the supply and demand dynamic, dude, the reason that you're seeing so many people now, and like I'm saying so many people, but it's really like a handful, right?
yeah,
Brian
yeah.
talks about buying businesses. Cody Sanchez
Hmm.
talks about buying businesses. Kyle Mallian or Malin, I don't know exactly how you say his last name, but he's got a big coaching program on buying businesses, right? Like this is becoming more and more popular because it is the new like blue ocean out there from a buy something with little to no money down that's going to cash flow. It's the new passive income thing that people are selling, right? Because real estate just doesn't generate the cash the way that it used to,
Hmm.
right? So back to the original question, we got to like totally sidetrack.
Oh,
But
I
dude,
love
today,
it. I love it
if
because
I
this,
was
yeah.
I would tell you if like your audience that wants to get into real estate today, like, look, if you want to be a real estate investor, like become a real estate investor, like do you. I'm not trying to like change minds here. But if you don't have this like burning desire to become a real estate investor and you're in it for what it provides for your family, which is what got me into it, I would encourage folks to get into property management because that's a sellable business that you can exit in a reasonably short period of time. When I say reasonably short, I would assume like about 10 years to really build it and be able to exit it. But you've got a seven-figure exit queued up if you build it right. Like easy peasy.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you have these like larger, like regional property management companies. And once they get to be big enough and they decide that they want to shift and they want market share in a different area of the country, dude, they don't go and organically start over. They go and they buy somebody that has a footprint. And that's exactly what happened to my old property manager. Brantley was his
Hmm.
name. So his portfolio was primarily focused in the Southeast, which is where I was doing my apartment syndications. And the company that bought him out was really a West Coast property management company. They wanted exposure to the Southeast. Why? Because the Southeast was the hot spot, right? 2020's COVID, everybody's moving to like the Southeast. That was like the hottest place for people to relocate to for several years. And so they wanted a piece of that action and they bought him out. 4 million bucks. Boom. Dude's like 30 years old. He could piss off today. And just if he makes some good investments, literally, like he wouldn't have to work for the rest of his life if he didn't want to. If he made smart investments. If he spent it like an idiot, then, back to work tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and that's
Um,
such a great
so
lesson to be able to go
I
off
think
of.
so property management, selling money. Become a hard money broker. Dude, you could go, think about this, right? With how many people want to become real estate investors, dude, you could go to like 4 meetings a month locally, not even your own real estate meetup. You could just go to the other ones that are around, one per week, and you could probably make six figures after like 6 to 12 months. If you're willing to work hard, right? Like, don't think that I'm just saying this and it's like you'll wake up and it falls on you. Like,
Mhm.
this all takes effort. Um, Maximum effort, right? Like a lot of effort, a lot of time. But I think the path is an easier path. I would also say um technology. Like if you're into tech, like dude, think about how many people you and I know that are now working on developing their own software solution, whatever, with the help of AI. Now, that's again a really competitive space, but if you can make something that's better than what a lot of other people are making, then I think that's a really great path too. And like software, dude, like if you build a software company, right? Like there's almost like that's like to the moon, right? Like
Oh
if you
yeah.
build a good software company and you do it the right way, like that's your real
Yeah, I mean if you
change your
look
family's future forever type of money.
yeah,
You know
if
what I'm
you
saying? But it's
yeah,
also super competitive.
yeah, that's like Stephanie Better's what they did with Left Main, and I mean
Yeah.
their business blew up, and I mean they're killing it over there. Working on getting them on the podcast. That'll be a fun conversation. But no, and I did have a lot of questions to be able to like go into the real estate side, but I'm glad we're talking about this because I think this is the bigger issue right now. And for the listeners, Adam, you have all of this experience. You have 12 years of experience doing the flips, doing the wholesaling, long-term rentals. I mean, everything in real estate to where you now can go back and say, look, like this is what was working back then. Here, it's not working today because of this. And real estate is always the long-term game because you're waiting those 20, 30 years to be able to pay off those rentals. So everybody thinking that getting one of these Burr properties is going to make them a millionaire, like kind of like I mean, that's what you're sold. But that's what doesn't work. And it only takes till you get 10 to 20 of them. Like I was at a real estate event last week and they were talking about getting into it's like these people had started a business and they're talking about investing in real estate. I'm like, guys, just go build another business, buy another business. Like I would not put any money into real estate because unless it's to take off on your taxes. So would you say that is a better strategy for real estate is making your money in some sort of business and then using the real estate for the tax advantages? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, like the easiest way to succeed in real estate is to use your own money.
Hmm.
It makes the margins a lot easier, right? Okay, so think of it. If I need to borrow 100 grand from a private money lender or investor in order to make a deal work, then that money that I needed to borrow is going to cost me something, right?
Hmm.
And everything boils down to income minus expenses equals, right, what's left over.
Yep.
And so if I need to borrow that $100,000, I'm adding another expense to that laundry list of expenses. Okay. And one thing that is super important for everybody to understand with real estate is you're kind of handcuffed to a certain extent as to your income and your ability to impact income, right? Because eventually you hit a number that is the top of the market number, and you can't charge more than that.
Hmm.
You can you can try to charge more than that, but you're going to have a lot of vacant units, right? Like,
Right.
oh, well, I'll just increase the rent to $1,800 a month. Like, well, not if the market is at 15,
Hmm.
right? Well, I need to charge 1,800 to make my nut. Well, you made a bad buy. Like, sorry, right? So if I have the ability to fund that 100K myself, it makes the deals a lot more attractive, right? There's more income coming back to me because I use my own money, right? So I think that like,
It's just the risk factor, right? Because I
well,
mean,
dude, like there are just because everybody says something doesn't make it true, right?
word,
Like,
100%.
and we live in this weird world now where, not to get political, but like most things now you have to be on this end of the spectrum or this end of the spectrum. And it's like we forgot as a society that there's like nuance and that most things fall in the gray area between the two polar opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But yet most of us think we have to live life on one extreme or the other, right? And so I just um
Yeah, the best
I think that
analogy for that is like there's like three sides of a coin. There's the heads, there's the tails, and there's the edge. So you want to be on the edge to be able to see both sides and make a good decision, but just because you saw this thing on TikTok or Instagram, you're way over here.
right.
And now you see something else and it's way over here.
So there's nuance to this conversation.
Hmm.
And I think that like I think it's Dale Carnegie that had said like, 90% of the world's millionaires
Yes.
got there through real estate. Do we know that that is exactly the quote that Andrew said? Is there a possibility that the exact wording was maybe tweaked or changed slightly over the last, like, what, 100 years? Because Carnegie was a long time
That
ago.
was over 100 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
So could it be possible, Chris, that he said something a little different? And maybe he said that 90% of the world's millionaires have money invested in real estate, which
yes.
would totally change the idea. Have money there versus made their money there, that's a big difference, right? So I would argue that if you already have money, real estate is a much, much easier path. And if you already have money, you're probably better off just being a private lender or a private investor to an operator that wants to go out and do all the hard work.
Love it. Love it. And so to build on that point, kind of what you said was you need to have money to be able to go buy real estate. For the people that are trying to make their money in
Well,
real estate, it is going to
hold
be
on,
much
time out.
harder. Yep.
Time out. I want to just make one minor correction.
Yep.
It's easier if you have your own money. You don't need it because I still go out and do deals with none of my own money,
Hmm.
right? Like my preferred deal requires none of Adam's own money out of pocket. Okay, but I have money where I can, like, if I needed to, I could come in and I could be my own investor. I choose not to want to do that because I want to have extra flexibility and extra liquidity to use wherever I deem necessary, right? Maybe there's an investment over here that is somebody else's investment and I could be passive. And so if I took my money and I put it into the triplex that I just bought, then I wouldn't be able to get into this deal over here, right?
Right.
So I think it's easier if you have your own money. If you don't have your own money, you just have to be prepared that it's a long journey. Like, it's a long journey. And the idea that you're going to acquire one house via the Burr method and it's going to fundamentally change your life is a totally flawed premise. Like, you need You need a lot of them. And
Right.
like, if we think about how, okay, so here's another, right? If we think about how expensive things are today, it's conceivable to presume that things are going to be way more expensive in 20, 30 years when we are ready to like make some changes in our lives and like exit, right? Be in that like retirement, whatever. So you actually may need more houses in the future to achieve a certain level of financial comfort, let's call it, than you would need maybe today, than you needed like 20 years ago, right? So this stuff is always changing, and we tend to think of it in like today's, like with the glasses on for today, but it's like we're buying them for tomorrow,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's what so many people like they get into real estate and real estate investing thinking it's going to fundamentally change their earning potential today, and that's not the way that it works. It's just not it. Like if you're getting into buy and holds, like you have to you need a bunch of them and you need to pay down your debt in order for you to really realize any kind of significant change in your earning potential and your income, right? And so most people are like, oh, I want to become a real estate investor, and they do a burr, and then like they think they're doing great. And so they go and they buy like six more of them in this short period of time. They don't have a bunch of extra income. Those properties are making them maybe 50 to $100 a month when they're fully rented out. Okay. And so that first big bill hits and they're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And that's how people lose. Like, that's how people lose. Right. And it's like, it's not that they all go downhill at once. It's that one is a problem and they can't afford to like do the unit turns on the one. And so they just like leave that one vacant. Well, they actually needed all the units filled to be able to make their monthly nut. And so now with that one unit that they can't afford to renovate, right? Because they don't have the nest egg there or the financial wherewithal capability to be able to put that $10,000 towards that renovation. Now it's like it's the start of the snowball rolling down the hill, right? It's like this one little thing that you can't overcome, and it becomes this big massive thing.
Yeah, and 100%. And we experienced that when we turned my one house into a short-term rental or medium-term rental, whichever one. Like we had this was the whole goal of like when I bought it. So I was going to move out of it. I was going to furnish it with, cheap furniture. It was going to make, I knew it was going to make this per month. So rented it out. It was rented out for like 75 or 90 days straight, then
Okay.
nothing for almost 3 months. And I started
Yeah,
looking at,
man.
yeah, and when, with everything happening with our stuff last year, we said, okay, we got to decrease expenses as much as possible. I'm looking at this thing over here. I'm like, okay, I'm paying the mortgage, I'm paying internet, water, this, I'm having to mow the grass on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm paying like 2,300 a month for this tiny house and it's not even rented. But when it is rented, it covers, but otherwise I'm doing
Mhm.
this. So we took everything out. So now it's like 1,900 a month, which we still need to do a refi because it's an insane rate when I got a
Okay.
refi. It's like 8%. It's nuts.
Mhm.
And
You're not
so
going to get much better today, unfortunately.
yeah, so
It'll get a little better, but
we put a long-term renter in there for 1,400 a month, and we're like, okay, well that took me from 2,300 down to about 500 a month, but no extra room for expenses. So it's that was one of the interesting things. So I just was thinking about that when you were talking
yeah,
because
and dude, and now you have much less of your time that you have to put like
oh yeah,
short-term and mid-term rentals are they're time consuming to manage and to
oh yeah.
operate.
I've had a couple of those guys on the podcast the past couple of weeks and I mean and I did like an interview for one being a property inspector and they were talking about the time and how intensive it is and I said that is a full-time business. And then when we were flipping the houses, we were going through with Hamong and we were talking about how much does it actually take to furnish this thing that it's actually going to be a profitable rental? And they're like, okay, well, you need about $10,000 per room. So in a three bed, two bath, and then you're going to have 10,000 in here. So you're already up to
Mm-hmm.
40. Then you need the hot tub. Then you need the cool yard. Then you need the games and the special fences. And I'm like, okay,
Dude,
well,
it's
that's like
ridiculous.
70 to 80 grand before I
Yeah,
even rent the thing. It's like, how are people
yeah.
making money? It
They're
doesn't make
not.
sense.
They're fucking not, Chris. That's the trick.
Based off of that, I want to start moving towards the end here. And so, in your businesses today, where does most of your focus go to in all of these different things going on in the business?
Yeah. So the thing that has always sparked my interest in real estate is this idea of residual income. Now, notice I didn't say passive. Okay. There is no such thing as passive income. Okay. Like I 12 years ago, I would tell you that passive income is why I got into real estate. But now that I've been in the game for 12 years, like it's residual income is what I'm after, right? So, which is why I hated the short-term rental space is because like the amount of time that you have to invest into like managing that, working with tenants, like, solving guest problems and stuff. If you don't want to be attached to your cell phone and like you feel a buzz in your pocket and be like, oh my gosh, well, I hope like don't get into short-term rentals. So
Oh, no.
um, so dude, most of my time is really not involved in my real estate business anymore. And that was kind of always the idea. Um, and I will also say that today, right, 12 years into the game, like this might sound obnoxious and I apologize if it does, but the the activities that I'm most interested in today are not necessarily driven based on the immediate financial ramifications for Adam and his family, right? Is because that we're already kind of like we're okay there, right? So my decision making is now driven more based off of the long term. Like, what is the long term potential here? How's it going to impact our family over the long term? So, um, my activity today is really like I am the analyzer, let's call it. So I have a partner. We do a lot of we do co-living and affordable housing. Like that's really my primary focus in like today. So he is local in Philadelphia, which is where we buy and acquire those. So I'm really like anything that can happen behind the scenes, like that's kind of where I live, right? So the buy box determination and constant like kind of tweaking of the buy box, like that's me. Modeling everything out in order to determine the correct buy box, right? That's me. So like I don't want to be sitting at my computer all day every day like analyzing deals, right? Which is very easy to fall into that trap and to feel like we're like working and being productive, right? But just analyzing stuff isn't productive. Analyzing and acquiring is productive, right? So we're on all these lists. That's part of my job is to like create lead flow,
Mhm.
right? So we get all kinds of deals sent to us regularly by wholesalers and real estate agents. Like, dude, I am out of like looking for my own leads. We did a ton of direct to seller marketing for years. Um, Adam's not trying to do that anymore. So we're
It's a
not
lot
doing
of
that
work.
anymore. So I'm more than happy to pay people to send me deals. Okay. Anybody listening in Philadelphia, I will pay you to send me deals. Okay. Like, no worries. I don't have my hand in anybody else's pocket. That's not the type of person that I am. Um, so but I'm analyze, I'm determined if it's a good fit. Okay. If it seems like it's going to be a good fit, then I coordinate to get my partner through the property. We do not do sight unseen buys. We don't do sight unseen buys. Y'all, I have been doing this for 12 years and I don't do sight unseen buys. I want you to think about that. There's a reason. Okay. So we tour the property. Um, I am on the securing of the debt figuring out how we're going to finance it, right? So I'm connecting with the DSCR lenders, the hard money lenders, the private investors, and the private lenders to get the money together to be able to go and acquire. Okay. My business partner, who is boots on the ground, he also runs his own HVAC business. So he handles like the renovation side of things, like that's all him. Okay. So from the date that we acquire, like I help with materials and like all that fun stuff. And then once we're done, we flip it over to the property manager. So I then kind of fill the asset management role where I'm like looking over the shoulder of the property manager. Here's another thing, y'all. Property managers, none of them are great, which is the other reason I say be a property manager, because most of them suck. And you can just not suck and be the best one in the market, right? So, like, the bar that you have to reach to not suck is really low when it comes to property management, right? But so you can't just flip a property to a property manager and think that they're going to do a great job for you. Like in most cases, they do like the bare minimum. And not because they don't want to do a good job, it's because there's just not enough coin to go around. They make the average property manager 10% on gross rents, right? So if they're managing a portfolio and most of the properties rent for $1,200 a month, they're making $120 on that door. So just think about how many doors they have to manage in order to be able to make decent money, right? And so that's one of the challenges in that business, and that's why it's so hard to do well. If you understand that going in, theoretically, you should be able to deal with that, right? But so I asset manage, I'm looking over the property manager's shoulder, like, hey, what's going on over here? What are we doing to deal with this situation over here? Hey, that tenant is late. Like, let's start the process over here to evict, like, right? So that's where my roles and responsibilities really fall
Okay.
today.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes more sense. So being pretty much looking for that long term and, kind of setting yourself up, being more on the operations side rather than being hands-on, trying to, flip all these properties or wholesale. So no, um that makes sense for kind of where you're at. But last question of the show here, what are you working on now? I know you mentioned that you're doing some co-living and you're doing some flips back up in Philly and the low income housing, some Section 8. So what are you working on now that's got you excited for these next couple of years?
Co-living.
That's the big one.
Totally. Dude, so for those of you that are new, okay, and or experienced, whatever, and you heard me say, like the whole be the miner, don't be the miner, sell shovels, sell pickaxes. If you heard that and you were like, fuck you, Adam, I want to be the real estate investor. I want to be the miner no matter what you say. Do co-living. That's my answer. Do co-living. Because um, co-living, I think, is like out of necessity, the future of housing in our country. So the middle class is being totally murdered, right? Like everything is expensive, wages aren't going up, they're not keeping pace with cost of living. And so you're seeing, the vast majority of our country was really the middle class for like our country's history. And that's kind of going away, right? Like the affordability crisis is a real thing. If you look at like data around how much people are living or how like the percentage of the population that's living paycheck to paycheck, like these numbers are like crazy.
Hmm.
And so the co-living movement, let's call it, is being driven by affordability from the renter demographic. Okay. From the operator side of things, they make more money and they're less risky
Hmm. Makes sense.
and they're easier to operate.
Yeah, I've seen a big push for the co-living and like it was big in Atlanta, now it's moving up here towards Charlotte. So, yeah,
Yeah, they're big in Philly. They have a presence in Charlotte. They're big in Baltimore. They're growing in Philadelphia. Like it's growing everywhere because of this affordability crisis. And
mhm.
like, dude, let's be honest. What other way is the affordability crisis solved? Are politicians magically going to start like balancing the budget? No. Okay, well that's out. Are they going to remove red tape to make it easier to build and develop? No, that's out, right? Um, well, are we going to get inflation under control and like cost? No, like
Probably
that's
not.
probably out. So then, like, what other solution is there?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about because my first apartment, it was just a small studio apartment, and what that costed me was probably less than renting one of these rooms in a co-living house today, and that was only 2019. So, like, it's crazy to think about just how expensive
Well,
it's
yeah,
getting.
and so I think that so I don't know if that's a great move from that operator necessarily, right? Like the idea with co-living is that it's supposed to be more affordable for people, right? Um, so you have like the difference in the cost of rent. So in Philadelphia, where is my primary market, like $1,000 for a studio is pretty consistent, like pretty average.
Hmm.
We rent our rooms for like 8 to 850 a month. Okay. So they're still less expensive, but they're not that much less expensive than a studio just for the rent. But then when you consider that I take care of, like we pay for the utilities, okay? So water, electric, gas, like we take care of all of that stuff. So not only is that not an expense, they also don't have like credit. You need credit sometimes to
Yeah.
get like the electric account or the cable account or the internet account or whatever. And so we're removing all of those responsibilities or all of those like financial whatever from the equation. And so somebody can move in and they don't have to get electric, they don't have to get internet, they don't have to put water, like none of that stuff goes in their name. It's all in our name. And so while that's an extra expense for us, it adds an extra like $300 to $400 a month, depending on the property and depending on how many bedrooms. Like obviously that impacts the cost of the electricity and the
Hmm.
utilities and whatever.
Yep.
Um, but so we're saving them in addition to the money that they save on the rent itself, they're also saving that like two, three, $400 in utilities and extra costs that they no longer have to incur. Right now, here's an example on the difference in income just to illustrate. So I converted a duplex to a co-living property. As a Section 8 property, fully occupied, that place would generate $2,700 a month, approximately 26 to $2,800. I'm laughing because this is stupid. So, dude, as a co-living house, okay, 43 to 5,000 is like fully occupied. That's our average.
Hmm.
So I'm paying an extra $300, $400 a month in utilities, and I'm making an extra like 2 grand.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Gee, that's a
pretty
hard
solid
decision to
numbers.
have to
I'll
make,
I'll
right?
take that.
No kidding. Um, so it's they're way easier from a like property management perspective than like a short-term rental.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I love co-living. I think it's the future. We're very careful with how we do it. So for anybody that is an audience or in the audience, excuse me, that's listening, like the one thing you have to be really conscious of if you're doing co-living is not exceeding. Most municipalities have a maximum number of unrelated adults that you can put into a rental unit. So you got to be careful not to exceed that number because if you do, then you could be shut down. So in Philadelphia, it's only three. And so you'll never see me with a 5 bed co-living house in Philadelphia. You will see me go buy a duplex or a triplex and put as like, so we just bought a triplex. It's going to be a 9 bed co-living property, but it's 3 units with 3 beds each. Right. So I'm
Mm,
still
makes
not
sense.
exceeding the maximum number of people per rental unit, but that's how we get as many beds into a property as possible, right? So you got to be
Interesting.
like strategery.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. So Adam, this has been awesome. What's the if someone wants to connect with you, learn more, be in your Facebook group, what's the best place to go to connect with you?
Yeah, I've been trying to do less and less and less on social. But so I still am very active. We're active in our Facebook group. So that is the cash flow collectors. Cash flow collectors. No, cash flow collective. Sorry.
Collective. Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, I'm in it. So, but
You're like, wait, are you sure you know the name of your own Facebook group?
they'll
Probably.
find you. They'll find you. But yeah, Adam, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This has been Adam and Chris on the Leadway Podcast.